So the next item on our agenda is the launch of A Different Energy, which is a book, Women in the Caribbean, Oil and Gas, which has been written by Celeste Mohammed. Before people come to the stage, in a change to the program, we organised this very much at the last minute, but the Honourable Minister of Planning, Penelope Beckles, Minister of Planning, agreed just to say a few words about the book this morning. So I would invite her to the stage just to say a few words and to launch the book. Minister.
Okay, good morning all. I'm sure you all had a good breakfast, right? So let's get a little Trinidad. Good morning. Good morning. That's really a little nervous part of me, right? Okay, so let me, I know this is, wasn't something on the program, but I just want to use the opportunity to congratulate the Energy Chamber for creating a space for what is really a very historical moment, in that this is the first of its kind, a book being launched on women in oil and gas in the Caribbean. So can you just put your hands together for Celeste Modest? I want to say that, this is, when you talk about a book, research, capacity building, for many of you in the oil and gas sector would understand how critical, and even if you don't talk about oil and gas, you talk about any sector, and you want to do research, you need to be able to have some form of reference. So the fact that we now have a book that has been written is really, really very important. I had the good fortune of attending the last two COPs in Dubai and Egypt recently, and I was really extremely happy to see persons from the energy sector, both private as well as state-owned companies, attending, because I think it's really important that the voices of the energy sector be heard, having regard to the challenges that exist for the sector in the discussions of fossil fuels and climate change. I grew up in the energy sector myself. In the oil sector, my father worked at Texaco and was the General Secretary of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union. So that I am particularly pleased as a child who has grown up in the oil sector to know that now there is this book that I myself would just love to read about. And I want to really say to Celeste that it's what you have done is so very, very important. And I want to ask, before you leave, those of you who certainly can purchase the book, I'm making a plug for her. You must have seen it when you're outside, so when you were entering. Having read the book, I just want to say that it's really an enjoyable read, as it successfully weaves a myriad of themes into a comprehensive work, which, apart from profiling the subjects, also raises the questions for further thought. Women, A Different Energy, Women in Caribbean Oil, also celebrates the stories of women of resilience, profiling their shared journey in a male-dominated industry. It looks at factors that motivated them to succeed, to make a difference, and to pave the way for future generations of women, girls in the industry. This book also raises questions about the distribution of oil and gas wealth resources. It challenges assumptions of gender-neutral benefits and takes a look at the unsung and unacknowledged contributions of women in the industry. It raises awareness about gender stratification within the oil and gas establishment and the need for further research post-Sustainable Development Goals 2030. A must-read is a final chapter, Drilling Down, which speaks to the benefits of employing women in the industry. Now, I have had the pleasure of serving as president of UN Women, and I really think that we need to celebrate that from my research, I think Trinidad and Tobago is the only country that has 2 female permanent secretaries and a deputy permanent secretary leading the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. And I had the good fortune of P.S. Fraser attending the COP in Dubai, and P.S. Penelope Bradshaw and D.P.S. Carinza attending recently in Dubai. In the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, they include engineers, geologists, geophysicists, petroleum inspectors. 50% are now held by women at all levels. And I'd just like to acknowledge and give credit to the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, as well as the Minister of Energy, for starting the 2019 mentorship program for energy professionals to build their capacity. And as we speak, at this point in time, currently 75% of the mentees are women. Now, the IEA would, in terms of the data, they speak about the fact that you don't have, comparatively speaking, that is to say, that of course it's male dominated. They speak about upward mobility, but Trinidad and Tobago clearly is one of the cases that we need to do a lot more research to find out, of course, what would account for the increased participation of women in the energy sector. One of the important things, of course, is the whole issue of access to education. And having done some previous research whilst I was at the United Nations, at present, women dominate almost every one of the subject areas at the University of the West Indies, save and except, of course, the issue of engineering. So I'd like to say that whilst the CSO speaks to women making up 41% of the national workforce, 20% of that women are involved in the energy sector. I was very pleased to see at the panel, of course, of 3 that 2 are women. So I'd like to, of course, congratulate and acknowledge Verlia and Charlene who participated. So let me just close by saying, because, this is a space we have granted, so, sometimes we could get carried away, so I don't intend to get carried away. But I really want to close by saying to Celeste that I'm happy to recommend this book to a broad audience of academics, gender and management studies, researchers, and persons in and around the oil and gas sector. Let me just, as I close, use the opportunity, because I had the good fortune of sitting next to the first female chairman, or founding chair and chair of the Caribbean Energy Chamber, Trinidadian, Melanie Chen. Melanie, congratulations. And I think it's important just to also celebrate today Cecilia Josephina Garcia James, who's the president of the Society of Petroleum Engineers. And just a few persons just to acknowledge, Lorraine Sobers, who lectures at the University of the West Indies. You all may know Clarice Macmillan Jupiter, the first female graduate in postgraduate diploma in the area, first female from the Pennsylvania State University who graduated in mineral engineering management. Arlene Chow, the first woman in TNT to lead a state-owned energy company. And I'm not going to acknowledge everybody today. It's always a risk, but just a few because of the time. And Tony Siraju Ramnarayan of the Atlantic LNG. Yes. So there's a lot we can say about women in the energy sector. And finally, it's really my pleasure to have had the opportunity to do this launch. And Celeste, I hope you're going to continue to write and not end here. For most of us who have attended conferences where they speak about small island developing states, one of the big discussions is always centers around capacity building. And therefore, it's so critical for what the Energy Chamber is doing to give an opportunity to us all in the Caribbean to have the opportunity to learn as well as participate. So again, my best wishes. I'm looking forward to seeing most of you here, notwithstanding what was said there a while ago that your salary is not as good as it used to be plenty years ago, but I'm sure it's certainly much better than mine. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. We want to thank the Energy Chamber, DAX, for giving us this time this morning to do this. My name is Shelley. I worked in television for a number of years and internationally, and I told the stories of a lot of people, from the very powerful to the very powerless. And this morning, I want to tell you the story of two women sitting on either side of me that I've known for a very long time. They are Celeste Mohammed and Deborah Benjamin. They wrote a story that's very dear to me in my heart. Like Penny, as she is fondly called, Penelope Beckles, the minister, I too am a child of the energy sector. I grew up with my dad working through Texaco, Trintalk, and Petrotrin. And like the dozens of people in the energy sector, I can build a cat cracker with Bristol board. Trust me, all of us know how to do it. Celeste Mohammed is a mom. She's an author. But she's also a lawyer who's written legislation that's still used in countries around the region. Deborah Benjamin, she's internationally known. I'll let her tell you why, if she's brave enough, and for what reason. She's one of the hardest working women I've ever met. She blows me away with her work ethic and her skills. She commissioned this project. Celeste wrote the book. And I'm going to start this morning by letting them tell their stories. Celeste, first of all, tell us what this book is about and why we should read it.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the Chamber for having us. Shelley, I am going to take up your challenge and jump right in. I'm going to address the elephant in the room. No, this is not a male-bashing encyclopedia. Sorry to disappoint anyone. That's not what this book is about. It's not really even about men. This book attempts to use our natural love for storytelling, memoir, literature, to humanize what is a systemic problem that goes beyond men. So I would say that the book is about trying to address what I would call the perception gap that still exists between how women actually experience the industry and how they are presumed to experience it by persons both in and outside of the industry.
Deborah, tell me why you commissioned this book. You work in the industry. You worked around the industry. It's over 20 years. I won't give away how old she is. But tell me why you commissioned this project.
Shelley, this would be my 25th year since I entered the oil and gas industry. And having been in the industry and recognizing that, there are still challenges facing us women in the industry, that we experience the challenges in a different way in this industry. And I wanted to lend my voice to it, and recognizing that it is one of the Sustainable Development Goals in terms of gender equality, the advancement of women and young girls. The project was something that was a passion project for me, and I was very happy when Celeste came on board and agreed to put it together for us. And we brought her into the industry to meet, all the prolific women that are featured in this book. And according to Minister Beckles, this is what is going to push us forward faster on the agenda. So I'm happy to have our contributions here, and we hope you enjoy reading the book.
Now, these ladies, they met with and they spoke to people here in Trinidad and Tobago. We have two of them in the room. We have Arlene Chow and I think we have Giselle Thompson as well here. And their stories are told. But they also interviewed women from around the region, from Suriname and Guyana. Celeste, I'm just going to go a little bit off script here and ask you to tell me what are some of the common threads that you found and what were some of the differences in talking to the women in Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, and Guyana, seeing that these countries have the opportunity to work together in a real meaningful way in the next decade?
Yes. Well, Shelley, I can't go too deep with my answer because then, that's a whole section of the book that I would be giving away. But certainly, what jumped out at me, a couple things, which I tried to collate in the last two chapters. All of these women, every single one, loved learning, continuous learning. Not because your company sends you to do a course or whatever. They loved learning. They all said the same thing without knowing that the others were saying it. I like to work. So these are women who don't back down from a challenge. They have what Angela Duckworth calls grit. And surprisingly, this is a surprising thing, every single one of them talked about the value of forgiveness.
So forgiveness is very interesting because we know that there are a lot of things that happen in all industries, not just the energy sector. Deborah, working in the energy sector, what are some of the things that have been the greatest challenges and how have you seen change over the last few decades?
So challenges for us, I think that spans across every industry in terms of, as women, especially in the C-suite sector, we are expected to achieve the work-life balance. But as with all the men in the room, in the boardroom, you'll have one or two women, and the men have their wives taking care of their kids at home. Whereas for us, we're still expected to balance, go back home, deal with all the household duties as well as the homework and so on. So it becomes even harder for us. We have other simple challenges, such as in 2024, we still have to struggle to get PPE that fit us as women, appropriately. I don't think there's any day I can do a pedicure and go into a pair of safety shoes the next day and, have it still remain as it was. And I know it sounds a little vain, but those are the challenges that we experience, simple challenges as women. You go out on a platform, and there definitely is a different experience out there for women and for men. So from the ladies that are, in the field every day to the ladies that are in the boardroom, the challenges span across the industry, and it's something that we've been very proud to bring forward. As a gentleman said to me yesterday, I didn't think of it that way. So it's not a deliberate attempt for men to exclude us or not, deal with some of these problems. It's just that sometimes it just doesn't occur. And I think what this does is bring out some of those issues so that, it will start a conversation around, oh, I didn't realize that was a problem. Let me do something about it. And that's how we move the agenda forward faster to promote, gender equality and the advancement of women in this energy industry.
Now, I know that every single woman in this room can tell a story of their own about sometimes being the only one in the room or at the table. I want Celeste to go into a little bit here. What makes women in energy different, the challenges that they face as opposed to women in finance, law, the other sectors as well, business?
I asked myself that question while I was listening to these women because, being a lawyer, especially working where I had worked in various countries in offshore finance and stuff, I was accustomed to being the only woman in the room sometimes, And I listened to these women, and what I experienced, whatever chauvinism or whatever you want to call it, I might have experienced, what these women were disclosing was something seriously more prevalent, and if not prevalent, but certainly more intense. And so I listened to them asking myself over and over again, and again, a whole chapter of the book is dedicated to that, me asking myself, what do they have that I didn't have? Because I got fed up of a lot of things, and I'm no longer practicing law, But these women have something, some secret sauce that I felt, these women in oil and gas, that makes them able to go out on the platform, despite, to show up in the boardroom, to have those one-on-one clashes. They all talk about clashes. Some enjoy it, some less so. But they have something that I felt I did not have.
I know later on during the live stream you'll be speaking, checking in with some of the subjects of the book. Hopefully we could have both of them who are here telling their stories as well.
Yes.
But Celeste, tell me a little bit about Arlene and her inspiring story. You started and you chose to start the book with her.
Yes. Many reasons. Ms. Chow having only just recently, actually, when I spoke to her, she was still on board at Heritage and was about to transition out. I felt that she would have a perspective and a platform. Her career spans, I mean, the gamut, both here and abroad. And she, being someone who is now leaving the industry, would be able to say and speak candidly in ways that perhaps persons still in the industry might not. I also felt like, you come to a point sometimes in life where what is anybody going to do? Beat me? You know what I mean? Like, what you going to do? Fire me? So I enjoyed talking to Arlene. Arlene was honest. She was candid. At times, she brought me to tears, but always she was very encouraging. And her takeaway is to recommend the industry. So thank you, Arlene.
And again, we'll be hearing from Arlene and Giselle hopefully in our live stream. To both of you, and these are getting into some of the issues that are in the book, but just one quick question that I know everybody has been asking about. You interviewed several people for the book. Why did you choose this particular cross-section of women? You have people like Arlene who've been in the industry for decades, people who have been in the industry just for a few years. You have young, you have older, you have seasoned, I would call them. You would have different perspectives, people who are engineers on the rigs, on the platforms, and then people in the C-suites. Tell us the criteria for determining the cross-section.
Well, I mean, the research shows that, yes, we need to get women into the industry, entry level, and we need to keep them, recruitment, retention. I wanted the book to speak to women at any level, really. Also, I wanted to show a sort of continuum. So like what Arlene talks about, we have a very young engineer coming 20, 30 years later, saying the same things, not knowing what Arlene said. So that tells you something,
And were you surprised by any of the content?
Yes, I was surprised by many things, but...
I will let you all, you have to pick up a copy of this book. This book is truly, it's not what you think it's going to be, it's not what you expect it to be, and it shows a role for everyone. So just finally, before we go, why should some people buy and read this book from your point of view as a publisher, but also as an industry stakeholder?
So as Celeste said, I think it's a celebration of the secret sauce, and we as Caribbean women, because it is very specifically focused on Caribbean women, we have a different experience to women globally. I think we are strong. Our experience as Caribbean women, our heritage in these islands gives us that grit, gives us that secret sauce to be resilient and do what we need to do to be successful. So this is the voices that you will read about and hear them speaking, because you know most of them in person. And I just ask that everybody look at it with an open mind and do what you can in your own way to move forward this agenda in any way you can.
Well, I'm getting a red block saying time's up, but the author will have the final word really quickly.
Why should anybody read this book? I think everybody should read this book. But, from a corporate and industry perspective, I feel this book does two things really well, if I do say so myself. One, it packages an important but the thorny issue in a very convenient and readable way. And also by centering the lived experience of 8 women across 3 countries, it really does give women's voices in the industry a pride of place. So I feel like every coffee table and shelf and whatever in waiting rooms and offices throughout the industry, this book will send a message by its mere presence, that it will send a resounding message.
I want to thank you ladies both very much. I'm very proud of these ladies for what they have achieved. I understand this is just volume 1. Don't worry, your stories out there will also be told, I'm sure. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Driver, and thank you for your attention. Your phone down.
Well, thank you all very much. Fascinating, and everyone, please go out and buy the book. And just, if I can, here at an NGC-sponsored breakfast, give a little plug that it is also for sale at Paper-Based Bookshop, run by the Bocas Literary Festival, sponsored by the National Gas Company. So please do go, and if you want to buy the book, please buy it there. And I should declare my conflict of interest. I'm also a board member of Bocas Literary Festival as well. So I just want to thank everybody, all the panelists for this morning's session, and thank particularly the National Gas Company for their sponsorship of this breakfast and their continued, fantastic support of this conference, and indeed for all of the work of the Energy Chamber. So thank you very, very much for all of that support. We have to all now rush over safely but quickly across to the Regency Ballroom, where we're starting at 8:30 in just in a few minutes' time with our annual awards program, where we are celebrating the 4 winners of our annual awards program. The Minister has very kindly agreed to join us across there as well. So please, can we all move across to the Regency Ballroom, where we will start at 8:30 sharp. Thank you all.